Right. Well, I'm delighted to say we've managed to get Ian to come come and have a little chat on Zoom this afternoon, just to give us a little update on a few things on and off the pitch. It's been a interesting start to the season on the pitch, but off the pitch we have got a few issues, which I think Ian we want to have a talk about this afternoon. Can we just start talking about the situation with the banning of people? And I know you want to give a little update and let people know, clarify some of the misunderstandings that have gone on there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've had our hands tied slightly because obviously there have been police investigations ongoing.
Yeah.
The FA have been involved because obviously the Blackpool, for all the rights and wrongs, the Blackpool game was there was a lot of media got involved afterwards, which maybe on a normal day and for the size of the fracas, not that I'm in any way excusing it, but on another day with a bit more news flying around, it wouldn't have made they wouldn't have made the visitor, never mind Sky Sports. But unfortunately it did, and the club would have acted anyway. I want to make that clear in light of what went on, but we were obviously under more pressure again to do so because of the interest of everyone, basically. The club issued 3 bans effectively, which are in place at the moment. And just to clarify, one of those bans was issued for a metal fence being kicked towards opposition fans, and then picked up and thrown effectively as a weapon towards them. That ban hasn't been appealed. A second ban was issued to a fan who we actually received photographs from an opposition club showing this person stood up at their ground holding lit pyrotechnics, which is obviously it's against ground regulations, it's a criminal offence. I don't think we need to say any more on that, but unfortunately that same person then during the Blackpool game was acting in such a way that his conduct was unacceptable towards stewards. So the culmination there left us with no option other than to ban.
Yeah.
And again, that hasn't been appealed. So read into that kind of what you want.
Yeah.
The third ban, again, in light of circumstances at the Blackpool game, was for unacceptable conduct towards the stewards. Now that has been appealed, and that particular person at the same time did fully admit the unreasonable nature of the conduct and did apologise for saying. So again, and just to make clear as well, those 2 bans, the unreasonable conduct towards the stewards, was right in front of me and a couple of the members of the Southport staff who had helpfully run across the pitch with me to try and calm things down. So that's essentially where we are in relation to those bans at the moment. Again, hands are tied because we are still liaising with the police as to what actions will be taken. Obviously, there must be, I can only presume there can be a bit of confusion over the nature of the bans.
Yes.
Because I personally have been particularly surprised by the support from some people towards the protest to get those bans lifted. If and now that I've explained the nature of the bans, hopefully that gives a bit more clarity. But I think that the very fact that we had people there last night who decide to advertise the fact that they want the bans lifted by setting off pyrotechnics, which is a criminal offence, just to bring them into the ground, I think that speaks volumes. I think that shows what we as a club have been up against. And I'm, I must say, I am. Anyone who saw me last night at the Jack Carr end will know that I'm surprised that some of the kind of more mature and sensible people who have been supporting, I won't say supporting this type of behaviour because that's wrong, but certainly supporting the fact that these people want to protest to have these bans lifted. I was asked last night as to why the banner was removed from that section of fans by the stewards. The reality is that that banner was hiding a box of, I think it was another 6 to 8 pyrotechnics, which was underneath the banner. I don't understand why protests of that nature would get support from anybody, to be honest. I don't understand why behaviour of that nature would get support from anybody. It's our job to make Hague Avenue a safe environment, but also an environment that people enjoy going to.
Yeah.
We don't want people to feel threatened. And what I would kind of, I don't want to have to, I don't want this to continue to be blown up, because, to be honest, it's given time and attention to people who, in my view, don't deserve it. But, pyrotechnics it's a criminal offence. It's a criminal offence to bring them in, and it's against all ground regulations to bring them in.
Just a few days earlier, we'd actually put out a post on the website about respect the game, and it was made very, very clear at that stage in what the situation was.
We've done it. I think you've done it on numerous times since the Chester game.
Yeah.
I feel kind of, it's disappointing, as I say, when you see support from some quarters, when, and I've seen people actually go on and say, well, it's only a pyrotechnic. Well, you tell that to the person with breathing problems who stood 10 yards away, who then gets taken to hospital. Fortunately, we haven't been in that situation, but I have seen it at other grounds where people have been taken to hospital in National League North because of breathing in the smoke from the pyrotechnic. We are in a situation where we have had a complaint from parents, rightly, who had to remove their 9-year-old child who was upset, so we say, by being stood by the pyrotechnics. And to the people who are kind of supporting this type of protest and this type of behavior, I don't imagine for 1 second that they will be ringing the parent of those child to apologize on behalf of the club.
Somebody posted actually on Facebook last night that the child was scared by what was happening last night because the smoke. It is unpleasant. I hate it when you get it coming wafting towards you, and that doesn't help the family environment we want to achieve, does it?
Whether you understand the rights or wrongs or not, or whether you're for or against them, the fact remains that they are against ground regulations and a criminal offence. And there is not going to be a letdown in that. In relation to pyrotechnics, and the same kind of going back to, because to make clear, the large proportion of the bans were not for pyrotechnics, save for one incident at an away game. But in relation to those bans, again, the club will always support the stewards in what they're doing. It's a difficult enough job as it is, and the club will always support them, and will not accept any kind of unreasonable behaviour towards them.
I understand one of the stewards was quite upset last night by what had happened.
Yeah, and that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. But the other thing I want to stress, Rob, is that we are talking of a small minority of fans here. If you look at kind of attendance last night, which I think was between 850 to 900. You're looking at a band of kind of 10 to 20 people at most, which is a small minority. So, I mean, again, yes, it's really disappointing to have to issue bans. We don't want to issue bans. We have avoided it as much as we possibly could last season. Arguably, some will say that we should have acted a bit earlier and brought bans in a bit earlier. It's not what we want to do. I can't stress that enough. It's not what we want to do. But, you have issued warnings on social media about the levels of behaviour we expect. We cannot condone unreasonable conduct towards opposition fans, towards stewards. We cannot condone pyrotechnics. And we will act, and we'll have to act. And as I say, I accept that there hasn't been that clarity before in relation to the bans, and maybe one or two fans who maybe have supported the right to protest of these fans will maybe take a step back now and think, well, okay, I can see more where the club is coming from.
Yeah.
But we're in a situation where, as I say, 24 hours after the Blackpool game, the FA were writing to us saying, funny enough, we saw all that activity on the Independent, the Telegraph, Sky Sports, BBC, wherever you want to look, it was there. Can we have your thoughts and views, please, on what's going on? And that's before we even get into the police and their involvement. And again, I would say to the fans who are carrying out these activities or supporting them in any way, if the club are left with a large fine because of this, who's going to pay that fine? Because I bet you wherever the people we've banned, or the people supporting the bans, or the people setting off pyrotechnics, or the people supporting the people setting off pyrotechnics, none of them are going to put their hand in the pocket to pay these fines.
No. Do we face the possibility of fines and sanctions? Because we have had a few incidents now, Ian. Are we on the verge of getting into serious trouble?
Well, I think any club who gets a letter off the FA which says, we saw what went on, can we have your thoughts, please?
Yeah.
It's not a good situation to be in.
No.
Any club who, the police are getting called to once or twice, never mind on a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
Questions start to get asked. And the first thing, like with the FA, the first thing that the FA will do and did do was say, what have you done about it?
Yeah.
And if we haven't acted and we don't act, then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Regardless of that, and as I said earlier, we will act anyway, because Hague Avenue is a family club. I can't stress that enough. We Southport have been criticised in the past for not attracting enough young fans. If we don't make this a safe environment, what chance do we have?
Yeah. Can we just clarify the situation with the banner, Ian? Because it was an inoffensive banner, wasn't it? But that was being used for wrong reasons. Is that what you're saying?
Well, my understanding, and again, we are still kind of, at the investigatory stage here. But my understanding is that there was a number of pyrotechnics brought into the stadium. My understanding is that the stewards were concerned that the banner was being used to conceal these pyrotechnics.
Yeah.
Within seconds of raising those concerns, surprise, surprise, at least one pyrotechnic was let off.
Yeah.
By the same group of people who were holding the banner.
Yeah.
And I think facts speak for themselves.
Yeah, there's one that came over from Meals Cop as well, and that could have hit anybody, couldn't it? That was totally indiscriminate. That was awful.
Yeah, and again, throwing a pyrotechnic is a criminal offence.
Yeah.
Who knows where that could have ended up, who that could have hit. And this is what we're up against.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a grim situation we've got. I think the thing later on in that game, though, when we've gone down to 10 men, just talking about the football for a little bit, the way the fans got behind the club, that is the sort of support we want and need, isn't it? Because it was fantastic last night. Jack commented about it in his interview I did with him after the game, how nice it was to have that back. We want that back, don't we?
I can't stress enough that, we all know that this is a small minority of fans.
Yeah, definitely.
It is really, really disappointing to be talking about this and dealing with it, but as a club, we need to.
Yeah.
And the messages I think that have come across might be wrong. It might be, as I say, that having clarified what the bans were for, people do take a bit of a step back. I genuinely, I stood on the Jack Car, I think it was the Tranmere game, and I heard a group of fans talking about how best to protest to damage the club. This is their club.
Yeah.
It's our club.
Yeah.
And why any group of fans would want to be doing that. And, don't get me wrong, they weren't, well, I hope they weren't talking about it in kind of in any more detrimental way other than not standing in the Jack Carr end and making a lot of noise and lots of atmosphere, because that was my interpretation of it. But I mean, again, it just defies logic to everyone who comes to the game wanting to enjoy the game of football and wanting to just watch the match. And as you say, once we got over that last night, the atmosphere was fantastic.
Back to its best, wasn't it?
And you know what? I think what is most frustrating about it is that Liam and I both last season couldn't praise the atmosphere enough. The fans were great. The atmosphere was great. The fans have supported the team all through last season. So we're scratching our heads as to where this has come from, to be fair. The whole, the pyrotechnics, everyone saw that group of fans run around the stadium towards the Blackpool end on that Saturday. And again, that came from nowhere. We don't know why. We don't know what instigated it. What we do know is that it was inevitable that it would lead to problems.
Well, I do appreciate the clarification, and I hope the supporters do, Ian. You've been very honest with us there, and I think we do need to get that out in the open to stop all the sort of nonsense that has been spoken about over the last few days and weeks, and get it out into the open.
We want to resolve the issues. I think I said in the program notes, or I hope I did, that if anyone kind of does want to discuss any issues to do with the club, we are always there. We're always around.
You've been saying that for years, ever since you came in here, and you've always said that, and I think we value that.
The problem is that some people do and some people don't. And for all the time you kind of go and spend and stood in the Jack Carr or at particular away games, it's the same faces who'll come up for a chat, and I enjoy that. I don't for one second want to kind of suggest that they shouldn't. But it would be nice if people with kind of issues and problems and thoughts and views would also kind of come up and have a chat, and not just with me. Steve is always around and about, and he's always having a walk around. Potsy's the same. Claire works on the bar whenever she can find the excuse to get down there. You speak to one of us, because we're always around, and that will or should hopefully eliminate kind of this type of behavior if we can have those discussions.
I'm sure everybody will appreciate that, Ian, and thanks for that. Could you just talk a little bit about football, because that's what we're all about at the end of the day, isn't it? So the Southport roller coaster has started after 3 games. Have we ever seen anything like what we've seen in these first 3 games? The ups, the downs, and the ups again. It's incredible, isn't it?
It's been a real kind of season of surprises already.
Not half, yeah.
I was, I mean, again, this is going to sound like an incredibly negative interview. I was really surprised at the levels of negativity on Saturday. The lads know they didn't perform. It was difficult circumstances. They will not play in those circumstances again this season. But that's not an excuse. They know they didn't perform. And I think Jack said it last night. They know they didn't perform, and that will happen occasionally. That's why it's Liam's job to go and give them a kick up the backside when that happens.
And that reaction last night was fantastic, wasn't it?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out, where I'm most surprised. The negativity after Saturday's game, or sitting at Boston's ground being 5-0 up. Because Boston is one of those places that I don't like to go. I don't think anyone enjoys playing Boston away.
No.
And for their typical slow start, they will be there or thereabouts at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Darlington again have wheeled and dealed well. Alan Armstrong, we know what he's about, and he's a really good manager. And Darlington again, I think will be there or thereabouts. A big side, a strong side. That Hazel up front is going to cause anyone problems. So no excuses for the Peter Cooper game.
I think that's the most un-Southport-like performance I've seen for a long time. I think that's what took us all a bit by surprise, because we had that high at Boston, but it just didn't happen, did it? And I think that's why we're all a bit, whoa, what's gone on here? But the response last night just answered that.
Well, we're 3 games into a season.
Yeah, you wouldn't think it, would you, already?
We are 3 games in, and if you had have given me Boston, Peterborough, and Darlington, I would have took 6 points.
Yeah,
at the start of the season.
Yeah,
and throw into the mix. And I don't think we're kind of realizing this enough, but you throw into the mix the injuries that we've had to Declan. I mean, Declan has got massive potential, and we're really excited for him to get going. We all know how good Josh is. And when he comes back, hopefully he'll get a full season once he gets going. Liam's Niall has been struggling the last couple of weeks with an injury, which hopefully now he's getting to the end of. We all know where Caden Niall Bell is and what something happened to Niall. And Chris Doyle, who I think was a contender for Player of the Season last season. I think the first half against Boston is one of the best performances I've seen him give.
Yeah.
And then we lose him. Jordan, I think, has played 3 games and been put in Rosette probably 200 times already.
Yeah.
So this is what Liam, has been up against the last kind of couple of weeks.
Can we come on to the squad size, Ian? Because I think that is the one concern amongst fans. We realise we've got a very, very good group of players there, fantastic. But the concern is we have had a few injuries. We're now going to lose Tyler. We have got a small squad. Is that a Cash situation, or is it a Liam situation where he likes to play with his small squad?
No, it's not. I don't think it's fair to say it's either of those things. I trust Liam and his kind of mentality and his views and where we're at. I don't think it's right to say necessarily that it's a small squad, because if we get those players back, you get Declan back into the equation, you get Chris Doyle back into the equation. We all saw how well Carbs played last night.
Yeah.
You've got Jack Doyle, who's probably one of the best left backs in the league, sat on the bench. You do bring Josh Shamami back into the equation. We're going to end up with players sat in the stands, which is not something we've had for a couple of years.
Yeah.
The obvious kind of logic to follow, in those situations would be, well, if we're struggling, let's bring in loan players.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not sure that kind of everyone appreciates that 99 times out of 100, if you go to a club and ask to take a loan player, that they're more than happy for you to do so on the basis that that player has to start the games. Now, if that's the case, and bear in mind, Liam has spent 2 years working on, the building the kind of camaraderie he has with this squad. If we have to take a loan player, who's going to tell Connor that he's not starting because the loan player has to start?
Yeah.
Or who's going to tell, Charlie Munro, who's really, really coming on this last 6 months or so, that actually no matter how well he's playing, this player has to start because we took him on loan. That's not going to help that camaraderie and the spirit amongst the squad. So it's a situation that we balance on a daily basis, Liam, and I talk about it every day. I know that if Liam does get in a situation like with Niall Bell getting injured, where he wants to bring someone in, then he'll come to me and say, look, we need somebody, let's get somebody.
Yeah.
I would like to think Liam knows that if he comes to me saying, I need X, Y, or Z, then we'll do our best to go and get them.
Yeah.
Similarly with the scouting system and Tommy, if it gets to a situation where we do need to bring players in, Liam and I know that Tommy will have 2 or 3 names straight away ready to go. But we need to make sure that they are A, the right type of footballer, and B, he's going to fit in with this squad.
I think that's always been important with Liam, isn't it? The players have got to fit in. And I know Julia and I say that they're probably the best group of players we've ever had. Brilliant to deal with, sort out media things with, and that is important, isn't it? That they do gel so well together.
Yeah, and you've only got to look at, it's not just together; it's the bond they have with the fans.
Yeah,
yeah. When they were booed off at half time on Saturday,
yeah,
rightly or wrongly. I mean, I'm not for 1 second saying fans shouldn't be able to express their opinion and boo.
Yeah,
but you could see how much it hurt the lads.
Definitely.
And I think you could see again last night at the end of the match how much it meant, because they knew that they had repaid to some degree what went on Saturday. And that bond between the players and the fans is really, really difficult. I mean, I know from experience it's difficult to get that, it's difficult to build that, and it's great, it's really great to see at the final whistle the amount of particularly young fans shouting Jack's name, or shouting Adam, or Cam, or whoever it is. It's great to see that, and that's what we've been trying to achieve.
I think last night we had so many contenders for man of the match, which is always a good thing, isn't it? You want to have that group of players, and Carberry and Bainbridge were obviously standout last night, but there was others as well, wasn't there?
Well, Liam will say that they owed him that.
Yeah,
I think it's fair to say, and we know that what we're aiming for. Bear in mind how last season went.
Yeah,
what we're aiming for is consistency.
Mm.
If we can kind of play the way that everyone knows, and even the biggest knockers on Port Chat or Twitter or Facebook, those people who've really got it in for the club for whatever reason, they know that this group of lads on their day.
Yeah.
We've just been to Boston and scored 5.
I know, you won't believe it sometimes, would you?
There's not many clubs who are going to do that. And even when Boston, let's be honest, when Boston were pulling it back, that's because we took our foot completely off the pedal. And I'm not excusing that, but we did.
Yeah.
And even then, if that game had gone on another 10 minutes, it would have been 7-3 or 8-3.
Yeah.
So, we all know that they've got the ability. And again, not to kind of go back on events from last season, how many points did we finish off the playoff? And I've already spoken about the letters from the FA apologising about goals that were scratched off that shouldn't have been, and 3 points that we should have had that we weren't given. And I know it is a game of ifs and buts and maybes, but what it shows is that they are a good bunch of lads and they've got ability. And Liam said last night, he needs to tweak here and there. He needs to tweak shape every now and then. He needs to play around with the players that are available as opposed to those who aren't. But once he's got a steady, consistent squad, and once you have brought back in Declan, and you have brought back in Chris Doyle, and you have got a fit Niall Watson, and you have got a fit Josh Amami.
It sounds good, doesn't it?
Well, it is. It's a good squad of players.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to take the wrong message from that. I don't want people to think that we aren't always looking to improve, because we are. But you've got to find the right players, and I don't like kind of talking about anything other than Southport and ourselves, but you look at Fylde, you look at the problems they've had finding a number 9. I'm sure they would give their right hand for a kind of Jordan Archer type player.
Yeah.
They're not around. They literally are not around at the moment, and they are difficult to come by. And that's why we have the likes of Tommy out there looking and trying to find the next ones.
Brilliant. Well, I do thank you for your time, Ian. It's good to get these out in the open every now and again, isn't it? Is there anything else just briefly you want to add to anything we've said this afternoon?
Yeah, it's unusual for us to be having kind of negative conversations.
Yeah.
And I really, really don't want to kind of come across as
Gloom.
Such a negative way.
Yeah.
We do want to work with all the fans. We were, genuinely, we were kind of intending to sit down as a board, look at the one appeal that we did get to the ban, to see if there's anything we could do there, if there's any way it could be reduced, or just try and work with the people in question. But again, events that then occur last night, it makes it difficult for us to kind of budge an inch in that sense.
Yeah.
I'm already kind of making noises that if people do want to sit down and talk to us, if you don't like me, don't talk to me. Talk to one of the others. It doesn't matter, as long as we're kind of talking to as many people as we can.
Yeah.
And in that vein as well, again, it's easy to be negative. Taking a positive, there's a big thank you from us to those people who have supported us in the actions we've taken. There were plenty of people last night who came up to me and to Claire and to Steve, and thanked us for what we're trying to do, and thanked us for trying to make it a safe family environment again. So it's a big thanks to them, because it makes a difference.
Yeah, you don't want to be dealing with that sort of thing in a game, do you? You want to sit and watch the game in peace and enjoy it, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't think I've enjoyed a game since I started.
I'm sure you have the odd one.
Yeah, well, maybe when we were 5-0 up at Bradford with 10 minutes to go.
End of the season, yeah.
But I mean, again, for those people to come over kind of and express their support.
Yeah, it means a lot, doesn't it?
It does. And it just shows that, we know we are dealing with a small minority.
Yeah.
And I really, really don't want that to take away from the kind of the fact that Southport is a fantastic club to be at.
Yeah.
We get so many plaudits from away fans, from away visiting directors. It's a real shame that we're even having this conversation.
Yeah.
But let's not forget the positives. Let's not forget, let's go back to debates between Lewards and Piers Morgan's son on Twitter.
And the toilets.
These things. I mean, as I say, it's really nice when we're getting, we got letters last week from the away directors just saying what a fantastic time they had, fantastic setup we've got. Let's go back to enjoying that setup. Let's go back to enjoying a nice family safe environment, and more so, let's go back to enjoying the football.
Yeah. Oh, it's lovely that, Ian. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and we'll draw it to a close, and I'm sure we can catch up again if anything ever happens, but hopefully we're talking about it being in the playoffs at the end of the season, or going for the championship even.
Let's just talk about football.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Ian.
Okay, thanks, Rob.